We're talking summer crops right now with Josh Lofton, our Extension Cropping System Specialist. So Josh, how are summer crops looking right now?
They're actually looking pretty good. We always talk about those timely July rains, and I think a bulk majority of the state. We do have some areas that haven't quite been as fortunate as others, but I think most folks have caught at least one or two of those July rains, and really that's what we gauge the how good the summer crops are going to be. Therefore, what we're seeing is a lot of our summer crops, while they were going backwards at the 1st of July, they've almost turned a corner, and if they have enough maturity left in them, they potentially could turn that corner for favorable and look pretty good at the end of the year.
You mentioned maturity, and we're holding corn, which we don't just normally do in our interviews every. You do. You just hang out with the corn. So right now, you can. There's actually ways that you can look at the maturity in the corn.
Yeah, actually, from the time we get tassels out in corn, we shift maturity looking at the plant itself to looking at the cobs, and that's kind of how we go through. A lot of people, when they see a corn ear and they see what's called dent, where we get these little kind of indentions on these corn, they call it, oh, well, I'm close to maturity. Not even close. That's a phase or two from physiological maturity. And if you actually open this cob up, and this is the best way to kind of tell it, what we actually have, and once we dent that corn kernel, we actually have what's called a milk line. And if you take a look here at the cob itself, we see to where it goes from a very, very stark, sharp yellow to kind of almost a paler yellow. The stuff on the top that's really sharp, that's mature. We've already transitioned to a lot of starches, carbohydrates. The bottom half is still very, very liquidy. It still hasn't developed its total seed weight yet. So depending on where we are on there is quite a bit left in the season. From the time we dent to the time we reach black layer, which is what our actual maturity on corn is about 28 days. So we got about 4 weeks, and it'll go down about a quarter each week. But it also tells us how much yield we have left in the field that we could lose. If we're just now at dent, we potentially could have 30% of the seed weight still to be filled. By the time we get to about a half to a quarter, we're looking about maybe 10 to 20%. That's still quite a lot to lose late season. So if we do have growers that are irrigating, remember, we need enough moisture to go all the way to black layer.
So when it comes to summer crops, we're always concerned, and producers are always concerned with pests and pest control. What's the pest pressure that you've been seeing this year in regards to summer crops?
Well, I think we've talked about it all year that weeds are an issue, and they're continuing to be an issue, especially as we get these big timely rains. Some of the earlier planted stuff didn't quite canopy in some instances, so we are still seeing a lot of weed pressure. The other thing we're kind of concerned with this year is the amount of worm damage we're seeing in corn. There's a lot of indication that we're seeing a lot of earworm damage, and you can actually see here we got a little corn earworm that's just snuck into this seed. You see, caused a lot of damage to the top end of this. That typically is okay. Very little yield effect from this, but as this corn matures and this corn earworm or these worms mature in the corn, they go and they turn into adults. If they stay in place, this could mean that we have a high pest pressure for some of our sorghum, our soybean, and maybe even our cotton crops. So something to keep a lookout as growers start to see this corn mature and start being harvested in the field. We need to make sure if you're running traps, that we're checking traps. If we're scouting fields, that we're scouting fields pretty heavily, because a lot of these bugs that are in this corn right now could move to some of our other subsequent crops, and growers need to be prepared for that.
All righty, Josh. Josh Lofton, Cropping System Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.